Hey everyone, welcome back to Moving to Georgia. I am Sarah Maslowski, your North Metro Atlanta real estate agent. So happy to be here with y'all tonight talking about what the heck is going on in the real estate market. Specifically, how is that impacting the North Atlanta metro real estate market, kind of letting you know what you can see an expectation in the months ahead, talk about what we've been seeing over the past couple of weeks. And there has been quite a few changes that have happened to the real estate market that you need to know about. So thanks for being here, and let me know where you're watching from. Say hello in the comments below. We'd love to say hello to you. So thank you for being here. So first off, there's been a lot of changes in the real estate market over the past couple of weeks. And one of the things that's really driving this is a lot of economic uncertainty, and all of that has to do with the tariff policies that were announced, and it kind of sent the markets into a little bit of a tailspin. And over the past 7-10 days, for a lot of my buyers that have been under contract that hadn't yet locked in their interest rates, it's been a little bit of a wild ride. So to give you a little bit of background and perspective, if it's been a while since you've bought a home, you cannot lock in your mortgage interest rate until you actually have a contract on a house. So once you have a signed, binded contract that your lender has, that is the only time period that you can lock in an interest rate. And sometimes, depending upon what the market's doing, your lender may give you the advice of, hey, let's wait a couple of days or see what happens, because there's supposed to be some good news coming out that might positively impact your mortgage rate, causing it to go down. Let's hold off a little bit and let's decide when we want to lock in your interest rate. This can also become a factor if, let's say, that you're buying a new construction home and that home's not going to be completed for another 45, 60 days. You have time to lock in an interest rate. Now, you need to know that you only get one opportunity to lock in an interest rate. Once it's locked, it is locked. Now, some lenders have special programs that if the rate drops by a certain percentage, they can relock you at that new rate. Some mortgage lenders will charge a fee to get out of the current interest rate that they've already locked in to go into a new mortgage rate. But for the most part, once you're locked in, you're locked in. So the scenario that I had recently with buyers this past couple of weeks is that, Friday, before the policies were announced, I had some clients that were looking at a 6.5% interest rate, maybe 6.7% interest rate, and that was great comparatively to where things have been. And then rates, or the tariff policies were announced, stock market kind of went haywire, which impacted the bond markets and all kinds of crazy things that had impacts on mortgage rates. And now all of a sudden that 6.5, 6.7% interest rate was like 7.25% interest rate. And that is a significant difference in your monthly payment whenever you're making that 0.5% jump. So I had buyers that were suddenly looking at much more expensive, mortgage payments than what they had been looking at. And one of my great lenders that I spoke with, he said, it has been one of the worst days for real estate or mortgage interest rates. And I have only experienced this type of turmoil and turbulence in the market 2 other times since I've been, in the industry for 25 plus years. And so that just kind of goes to show how up and down and just crazy and unpredictable the economy and everything can be. So, while at the end of the day, we give a lot of great advice and try to interpret what economists and experts are predicting, sometimes you just can't predict the unpredictable. And so that was a hard pill to swallow. Thankfully, rates came down a little bit, but y'all, they're still kind of hovering at that 6.97% range. And that is, a little bit of a challenge. We were hoping, if you go back and look at videos earlier in the year when we were talking about what are rates going to do this year, we're hoping that we were going to kind of hold steady in the mid sixes, kind of bump our way down even to the low sixes by the end of the year. I don't know what we're going to get at by the end of this year. One thing, though, is for certain, we can go back and look at the past year and a half since we've been talking about these higher mortgage rates. And two things are for certain. One, they haven't come down all that much. Two, neither have home prices. They've gotten a teeny teeny tiny bit better. And we're going to dig into the data here and look at that. But it's, things are holding steady. And that is a little bit of a frustration, but it's kind of like you better be careful what you wish for. And what I mean by that is any significant decrease in interest rates right now, 0.25%, 0.5% is just going to drive even more demand for buyers out there for houses, which is going to put steady pressure on home prices, holding home prices, or even putting upward pressure on home prices, causing you to have to spend more on that home. So essentially, any gains that you make from a lower interest rate, you may just wipe it out by paying $10,000, $15,000 more for that mortgage. So we're going to look into, or for that house rather, we are going to look into some data here. But if you're just joining us, thank you for joining us. Say hello. Would love to know where you're watching from. Welcome to the live stream. We've got Carl watching from New Jersey. Thanks for joining us, Carl. Appreciate you being here. Thank you. So let's get into kind of what the experts are saying about those mortgage rates. So you see here, will rates fall in April? And we know that tariffs are complicating this very much so of what we are seeing in the market right now. And things are just a little bit unpredictable, right? So if we look at this article, so thankfully he came out and announced that Donald Trump came out and announced the 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs, which gave a little bit of breathing room in the market, and it caused, a little bit of a bounce back, gave markets a little bit time to stabilize. But there's a big unknown here, is that we don't know what's going to happen at the end of these 90 days. It caused, whenever this happened, whenever the tariffs initially went into place, 30-year fixed mortgage rates had jumped to 7.1%, up more than just 0.5%, than they were a week ago. And so that is a huge swing in mortgage rates. And down here it says experts predict that rates will move lower throughout 2025, but it's not going to be a dramatic decline as what we were expecting. We're expecting them to kind of remain around that 6.5%. So, I definitely think it's going to be one of those things where a lot of this also has to do with what is going to happen at the end of this 90-day tariff pause and kind of see where everything shakes out. So we might have a little bit of a good sweet spot here if you were in the market to buy a house, to have a little bit more certainty about what's happening with mortgage rates versus waiting another however many days are left in that 90-day pause, and there might be another upward swing in interest rates that hopefully will kind of settle back down. If you are thinking about making a move or have any questions about the real estate market or have opinions, I would love to get your input on what is going on in the market and kind of how you are having it impact you personally, whether or not you are buying or selling. Another kind of flip side to those tariffs that a lot of conversation has been happening is, how is that going to impact home prices in general? Specifically, how is that going to impact new home construction prices? And that is definitely something that we need to take into consideration. The Metro Atlanta area especially the North Metro Atlanta area, is a prime market for new construction homes. So if you are looking for new construction options, you are going to drive around and see new developments everywhere you look. But home builders are pretty worried about these tariffs, and they are saying that it's going to add nearly $11,000 in cost to each new home. I personally feel like that's a little bit on the low side. I've heard some higher estimates. So let's dig into that. It says that tariffs are going to add nearly $11,000 in cost for the average new home, and builder sentiment remained low. It was at 40 in April. Whatever, we don't need to do that. But 60% of builders reported that their suppliers have already increased or announced increases in materials due to tariffs. So the good thing is that for homes that are already built or in the process of being built, kind of like in that 60-70% range, we're not expecting to see much change in those prices there. But it's for new builds that are coming off the ground that it's going to have the biggest impact in. And specifically, a lot of these builders are getting their wood from Canada, where most of our wood comes from to build these houses. We all know how that's going with Canada. And so the good thing is that the home builder industry has a large presence with a lobbying presence, trying to make sure that their interests are lobbied for. And we've seen, things can change rather quickly. So this could be something that could get worked out, or maybe an exemption is made for home building. Um, Here we have home builder sentiment. Now, this is something that's very important because you see here, home builder sentiment dropped after the recession or during the recession. And it has taken a long, 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 long time for home builder sentiment to raise to its highest levels during kind of the peak of the pandemic, when there was a huge demand for housing. But here's the challenge with home builder sentiment being low. We already have drastically low supply of homes in general across the United States that does not meet the demand for the amount of buyers that are currently out there. Anytime builder sentiment is low, home builders pull back or scale back the amount of homes that they were planning on building. And you may think that doesn't make that much of a difference, but it does. It makes a huge difference when you are a home buyer 2, 3, 5 years out from now, and you want to buy a house and you're wondering, why are these home prices so crazy? It's because we don't have enough supply. And it's because home builders pulled back building when things got a little bit scary or iffy. And we saw how long it took home builder sentiment to kind of come back up after the Great Recession. And if you watch some of my other videos, we talk about how historically home builders are just not even breaking even to where the rate at which they were building houses pre recession back in 2006 and 2007. So it's taken us, what? Do the math. 11, no, gosh. How can I not think right now? Don't judge me off of my math right here. But from 2006 to 2025, what is that? 14 years. So, God, no, that's 9 years. No, that'd be 2015. Okay, this is very embarrassing. We're just going to edit all this out. Pretend you don't know this, but too many things are happening right now. But anyways, it's been a really, really long time since for that inventory supply levels to come back up. And so here's what I'm seeing right now with new home construction, and that is because interest rates are so high or higher than what they have been, and because there's not as many buyers out there in the market as what we have seen in the past years previously. Home builders are really incentivizing buyers to buy a new construction home. Some of the things that I'm seeing is, hey, here's $20,000 any way you want to use it to buy this $600,000 home. You can use it to buy down the interest rate, use it to cover closing costs, use it to bring down the price of the house. I'm seeing that. I'm also seeing builders offer, hey, here's a 5.5% permanent interest rate on this house, and we're covering $15,000 in closing cost. That is a pretty darn good deal, especially when you're comparing to resale homes. A resale homeowner, they don't have the ability to offer that rate to you. But my concern is that as the building costs become more expensive for the builders due to the tariffs, they're going to have to claw back that money somewhere. They're not just going to eat it. They're going to take it from somewhere, and that could be, pulling back some of that closing cost incentive or interest rate permanent buy down that they're doing right now. So there's a really good opportunity in the market for new construction homes. Now, of course, the trade-off with new construction homes is that you are going to almost 9 times out of 10 be on a much smaller lot than what you would be if you were in a traditional resale neighborhood. So that is something that you are just going to have to deal with. Obviously, the trade-off is that you are getting a brand new house, brand new roof, systems, things are covered under warranty. You're not going to have to worry about replacing anything major. And this is a great conversation that I had with some buyers who recently bought, and we ended up buying a new construction home. And part of that conversation was like, hey, look, how long do you feel like you might stay in this house or in this area? And they're like, well, we can confidently say we'll be here for at least 5 years, and then we might choose to do something different. The kids we'll have graduated high school by then, and likely our job is going to give us more opportunities to go somewhere else. So part of weighing the pros and cons of that new construction house was not only the interest rate, not only the closing costs, so reducing the amount of money that they have to bring to the closing table, but also I'm like, hey, you're not going to have to do anything to this house for the most part whenever you go to sell it in 5 years. If we're looking at a resale home, even if the HVAC system's only 9 years old today, whenever we buy it, likely you're could be facing a big expense down the road, should that HVAC system go out. So those are all things to kind of take into consideration. And in this case, it really made that new construction home a clear choice or clear winner. Carl, are sellers motivated, but we don't have buyers? Yes. So I think what you're asking is, so the good thing is that we have a rising level of inventory, and we're going to kind of take a look at some Metro Atlanta numbers here to help illustrate that. So the great thing is that we're seeing more homes on the market. The bad thing for sellers is that we're seeing less buyers out there in the marketplace. So buyers have a little bit more negotiation power. They have more negotiating power than they have in the past 3 to 4 years. So that's a great thing. And as someone that works with both buyers and sellers, I'm definitely seeing this on the listing side and on the buying side. I haven't had a buyer pay full price for a house in a year, it feels like. I have to go back and check my math on that one, but it feels that way, right? Because we've been able to have some pretty good negotiations with sellers in getting the terms that are needed for my buyers or that make the most sense for them. The challenge sometimes that we have with sellers is that it takes them a while of being on the market to understand that, hey, there's less buyers out today than there were a year ago at this time period. Therefore, the price that I thought I was going to get for my house may not be the price that we actually sell it at. And so we're seeing sellers take a while to do price reductions or be reluctant in doing price reductions. Um, I have one seller right now. We've been on the market for a month and we've had 0 showing requests. Now, that is clearly the market saying, hey, you are overpriced. The conversation that I'm having with my seller is that that's really the only thing that we have in our control that we can change is the price. And my seller is having a very, very hard time coming to understanding that we have to bring down that price a good chunk to make sure that we're appealing to the right buyers. The hardest thing for sellers right now is that they are in a beauty competition, right? With all the other houses that are out there. They're competing to get chosen out of the other competition that is out there. And there's a limited number of buyers that are available to buy that house when they hit the market. And they're trying to be the best. And if you're not the best and you're not appealing to the most amount of buyers, you're not getting chosen. You're not going under contract. So then you're just kind of sitting there and you're waiting until a new buyer enters the market. You're waiting on someone to either say, hey, I'm moving to this area, or I just got approved and now I can go out shopping for homes. And that's why there's that big lag. So that's also a good indicator that if you're a home buyer in the market and you see a house that's been on the market for more than 3 weeks at this point, you are in a very strong position to negotiate off of that sales price. And so that's something to keep in mind. Now, some sellers are realistic to that and some aren't. And then sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get them to understand. And specifically, I'm talking here in the Metro Atlanta area. There's definitely pockets in the country where home prices are holding very steady and it's still a very, very strong seller's market. But the good thing is that if you are in the market here in the Metro Atlanta area, for the most part, you are going to be in a situation where you can likely find a good deal. It may not feel like a good deal, but it is comparatively in the terms that you're going to have more homes to choose from, and you're likely going to be able to get that seller to negotiate on price or closing costs, those sorts of things. So yes, you have to be the prettiest home on the market. And that's another thing that we're seeing in the market right now is that, for the past couple of years, looking at 2020, 21, 22, you could just put your home on the market and say, this is what I want for it, take it or leave it. And there's going to be a lot of people that want to take it. Today, if a seller here locally wants to put their home on the market, in order to get top dollar for it, in order to attract the most amount of buyers in this beauty competition, the house needs to be pretty. So, it needs to have updates. It needs to be move-in ready. You don't need crazy paint colors on the wall. All of those things that you see and hear about on TV, that's what buyers want. And they're being very picky right now. So that's why you're able to negotiate off of the price of houses here and kind of get better terms, because those houses that were winning the beauty competition had all those things, and now your home doesn't. So if you're here locally, you're thinking about putting your home on the market, getting your house prepped to sell is incredibly important to make sure that you're appealing to the most amount of buyers so that you can win that beauty competition. So let's dive in and let's take a look at the local data to kind of back up some of the stuff that I've been telling you. So let's dig into local stats. I always like to share this directly from our local MLS system so that you're able to see exactly what I can see. So let's see here. Let's look at the median sales price, and this is for the greater Atlanta area. So we see that overall in the greater Atlanta area, the median sales price is pretty much flat year over year. But here's something that is super important is the days on market. So what you're seeing naturally is it's like a 3-year sales cycle, of the real estate market. It's normal for homes to be less days on market in the springtime, because that is when the most amount of buyers are out there. That's when you have the greatest chance of selling your home for top dollar. However, if we take a look at March of 2025, the average days on market was 23. If we go back and look at what that was March of last year, it was only 15. So we're almost looking at double the amount of days on market. So that means buyers have more homes to choose from. And that means if you're a seller, it's going to take twice as long to sell your house this year as it did last year. So let's look at homes for sale. So this is great news. This is great news if you were a buyer. There are 17,000 homes available for sale in the greater Atlanta area. That is almost a 50% increase compared to last year. Huge news for buyers, because that means you have more to choose from and you can be the judge of that beauty competition. You actually have, pretty houses to pick. Whereas, back in 2022, if we look at March 2022, you had what is that, like a third of the homes to choose from, 6,000 homes. So you were just lucky to get a house that had 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, maybe had the yard size that you want. And thank goodness it has an updated roof. You'll take care of all the others. Whereas now, if you're in the market, yes, it's great that it has a new roof, but you're also wanting something that's move-in ready, that you don't have to go in there and paint, replace the carpet, replace floors, all of those things. So we're definitely seeing that play out on the market, which is so good for buyers right now. On the flip side, if we're sellers, we just need to make sure that we are winning that beauty competition. So I want to show y'all another cool set of data. Hey, Lone One, thank you for joining me tonight. I appreciate that. Yes, it has been a while, so good to connect with you on here. If you are not following me over on Instagram, go over there, connect with me. We post daily all kinds of really great stuff about what's happening in the North Metro Atlanta area, developments, businesses that are coming, restaurants that are opening, you name it, we're covering it, or we're trying to cover it. So if you're thinking about making a move there, if you're watching this and you're local, come join me over on Instagram. I see Lone One over there all the time. So again, if you're have any comments, questions, concerns, thinking about making a move to the Metro Atlanta area, let me know. We'd love to talk about it and answer those questions and get your opinion. That would be great. Oh, this is a great segue. How are the home prices in Marietta? So let me share. Give me a second. Working on the back end. Okay. All right. So home prices in Marietta. Marietta is in Cobb County. Oh, let's get that down. Okay. And I think this is going to be helpful if we do it like this. Okay. Um, this is how many homes are currently for sale. So in Cobb County, where Marietta is, we have over 2,000 homes for sale. The median list price in Cobb County is 450,000. Now, obviously, that's going to change. But if we take a look at Marietta specifically, and of course, it's going to depend on the zip code of where you're at in Marietta. Obviously, over here in East Cobb, that is going to be much more expensive of a zip code to live in. You see the median listing price is 615, whereas other parts 420, and then over here on the West Cobb side, you're closer to an average price point of, or a median price point of 600,000. So that is good info. Sorry, that did not happen how I wanted it to. Okay, I really wanted to show y'all home price reductions and what that looks like county by county. So this is something that I thought was pretty interesting. So let's take a look at Hall County, for example. That's Gainesville, Flowery Branch, tiny part of Beaufort. 28% of homes in the month of March had a price cut. And so here's one thing to kind of keep in mind. A price cut doesn't necessarily mean that home prices are depreciating. We're not seeing necessarily homes selling for less this year than what they did last year, but we're seeing sellers either overpricing their homes initially or having to, drop that price to bring them down more with reality. In Forsyth County, which is where we have coming, 30% of homes have had to have a price drop in the past 30 days looking in March. Gwinnett County, about 26%. Fulton County, up here you got the Alpharetta area. It's kind of a little bit of its own market. But this is a really good kind of indicator of what we see across the country. Now you see here across the country, across Georgia, across the metro Atlanta area. Here in Banks and Jackson County, Barrow County, we see a little bit less in price drops. There you see it in green. And the reason for that is that there's more affordable homes out in those areas. You're going to find more options in the 300,000 price point, in the 400,000 price point. In those homes, especially new construction homes in that price point, you don't really have to do much price reductions to attract the right amount of buyers there because it is a sweet spot. When you have an area that has, already kind of higher prices, it's going to be that way. If you want to look at home value growth year over year, you can kind of see, for the most part here in the metro Atlanta area, you see positive home price year over year growth in value. You'll notice that the city of Atlanta, this blue section, this is pretty much inside the perimeter of Atlanta, and that has seen home values drop by 1%. And essentially, more home buyers, businesses are choosing to expand and be in the metro Atlanta area versus inside the city. All types of things kind of contribute to that. You've got crime, school systems, all those things kind of contribute to those factors. Yes. So if you have any questions about making a move, or if you have any questions about any areas that you want more details on or opinions or info, that is good to know. One thing that I talk about a lot here with home buyers is property tax rates. So this property tax rate is essentially kind of like an average or pulling the median property tax rate for various different counties. I wouldn't count on this exact data to shake out exactly, but you can see for the most part, like Hall County, 0.7%, Forsyth County, 0.6%. These are one of the two lower counties, Cherokee County for property tax values. Gwinnett County, Fulton County, Jackson County are going to be more expensive areas to live in. And some of these counties also offer really great senior homestead exemptions, which is always nice because, that's going to save you sometimes almost 60% of your property tax bill. So that was fun. I got to share with a client that was in town yesterday looking for homes, and we were comparing two different options in two different counties. And I was like, hey, well, if you choose this house, you are going to save 60% on your property tax bill because you're going to qualify for the senior homestead exemption. Whereas this county, they don't offer it at all. So you are, we looked and compared the numbers. It was going to save them $6,000 annually in property taxes. So that is something to keep in mind. Lone One says Wilkes County is very high. Let's take a look at that. I don't even know where Wilkes County. Oh, way over here. Yeah, 1.1%. That's crazy. So, yeah. Interesting. So if you have any questions about making a move here to the Metro Atlanta area, what's going on with home prices, need advice about where to live, go ahead and drop those comments in the chat. We'll make sure that we answer those. If you're new to the channel here, we post videos every single week about what it's like living here in the Metro Atlanta area. I'm a real estate agent here, and I help so many of you move and relocate here, and also help a lot of people here locally buy and sell. Great question, Blue. Could you share your insight on the Gwinnett area, specifically Swanee and Lawrenceville? Yes. So those are two great areas. I'm going to go back and let's use this map to kind of help us analyze some data between the two. So Gwinnett County, that's not what we want to do. Let's type in Swanee. Okay, and this has us at property tax, but let's look at actual home values. No, let's look at home prices. Sorry. Trying to find the right piece of information that we can. Where is like median home price? Home value. Let's just go with home value. That'll give us the information that we need. Okay, so Swanee is right here. The average home value in Swanee is $617,000. Swanee is known for really great schools. You've got lots of parks, lots of good restaurants. And you see here that it's right here off of 85. So if you're commuting down into Atlanta, very, very nice for that because you are very close to 85. Similarly, for a lot of people who have jobs or maybe have spouses going in opposite directions for jobs, you also are really close over here to Alpharetta, Georgia 400 here. So if you work in tech, Alpharetta is a big kind of hub for a lot of tech jobs and places like that. Also really great shopping over there. So Swanee's really nice because you're close to a lot of other areas that give you a lot of great restaurants, shopping options, park options. Now, when we look down here in Lawrenceville, Lawrenceville is really going to kind of encompass three different areas. And you see that home values here are much, much more affordable than they are in Swanee. So in the 30043 zip code, the average home price is $413. In the heart of Lawrenceville, 346, South 366. So the main reason and the differences between these two home values is largely driven by schools and the types of communities and the age of the houses. So because Lawrenceville is such a well established, built out city, there's hardly, there is no more land left to build. Same thing with Swanee. But for whatever reason, Lawrenceville was, I guess we can go back and look at the history. I would assume that Lawrenceville was a town that was much more developed before Swanee was as an actual town with neighborhoods and such, which means that in Lawrenceville, you have a lot of homes that were built in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, whereas mostly in Swanee, you're looking at 90s and 2000s age of homes. And so just in general in the Lawrenceville area, you can find more affordable homes, but a lot of times it's because there's kind of like a big disparity between the affordable homes in Lawrenceville and those homes that are kind of considered in more nicer neighborhoods, um, because you have a lot of homes that were built in the 80s and 90s that haven't been that well taken care of. A lot of them have been turned into rental homes. And so you have neighborhoods that, have a lot of renters in there that may not take care of the homes very well as what a owner occupied um, owner would take care of the home. And so that's kind of affected home values. Another thing is that the schools are very kind of hit or miss in Lawrenceville, but for sure in this 30043 zip code, where you're going to find better schools, which is reflected in the home price there. So I hope that helps answer your question about those areas. The Lawrenceville has kind of like a true downtown area. Swanee doesn't have that as much. In fact, they don't have a downtown area, but what they do have is Swanee Town Center, which is an amazing um, outdoor kind of shopping center, restaurants. They've got this huge green space. Just across the street from there, they recently opened a brand new park, which is amazing, and they have tons of food truck festivals there. So you definitely have some good options, but they're definitely very, very different. So great question. And a lot of times what we do is whenever we have clients that are thinking about moving to a specific area, we'll have a strategy session, for lack of better words, to kind of say like, hey, what's your budget? What are you looking for? What do you like and what you don't like? And initially, sometimes we have clients that come to us saying like, hey, we thought this would be the best place for us. And then after talking with them and learning more, I can be like, hey, I think you should also probably consider this town and this town as well while you're checking places out and exploring and trying to narrow this down. And sometimes we're able to find a better like nearby town that's a better fit for you and will get you more of what you want. Do you also happen to know what areas would have older homes or townhomes? Yeah, so that Swanee area, anything kind of like in the metro Atlanta area, the closer into Atlanta you get, the more opportunity you have for older townhomes. The further north you get, you're going to get more new construction townhomes. And so if you're open to townhouses, you are going to have so many great, fabulous options in a range of price points. And the challenging thing is that I completely understand why so many people want a single family home, especially first time home buyers. If you don't have kids yet, but in your mind, when you think your first house, you think, a single family house for the most part. However, I think a townhome is an excellent option to get into the real estate market, start building wealth through real estate, gain that equity so that you can sell it a couple of years from now. Do you have recommendations for checking out the safety of a neighborhood or a subdivision? Yes, I do. I cannot remember. I think citydata.com is the website. Niche.com is also really good. Um, Now, I think overall, you always want to check and do your own research, right? But for the most part, if you look at home values, if you look at schools, if you look to see if there's any development happening in the area of any kind, are they opening up new Starbucks? Are they building a new Home Depot? Are restaurants choosing to go there? Are builders choosing to put new construction homes on any availability of land that's out there? Those are all good socioeconomic indicators that an area is going to likely meet the criteria that you're looking for. I would say the one caveat to that are schools. So there's a really great website called greatschools.org that we reference a lot in the content that we put out. And that website gives rankings from 1 to 10. Um, Generally speaking, 6 or above is going to be a pretty decent school. Now, obviously, I have clients that say, hey, we only want to be in an 8, 9, or 10. And I get it. But as a former teacher, I used to work in a school and we were ranked 6. But it was a fantastic school. And sometimes you have a lot of diversity and maybe English speakers of other languages that are where English isn't their first language. And so when it comes to testing and stuff like that, some of these ratings are based off of can kind of skew that. So there's some fabulous local Facebook groups that if schools are important to you, you can go in there and get some really great local information from moms and parents that have kids in those direct schools. Because, the school that I worked at, one of the high schools, it was the only school in the county that had specifically specialized gifted and special programs called GISA and an IB program, and still that school had a 6 rating, but it was a fantastic school. So take that a little bit with a grain of salt. Now, obviously, we don't want to be somewhere where there's like a 2 or a 3 rating. Um, yeah, that's a great one. A great suggestion to people watch or even talk to local police departments or sheriff's office. Um, This is a funny story. It was probably a year ago this time. I was on the call with a client and they said, hey, we really, saw a lot of good options in Gainesville, but we're taking that one off of our list because we went and did research and that had like an incredibly high crime rate. And so I live in Gainesville. And I was like, what? Really? Because, as someone that keeps up to date with news and happenings and everything that's going on in the area, I don't see that. And so sometimes what happens is that some of this data from websites can get a little bit skewed from particular parts of town that maybe the crime is happening. Um, and I often tell clients that, hey, for the most part, maybe where that crime data is being pulled from, you're not buying a house there anyways. There aren't homes there that you would actually like and want to buy and in that price point. So it was like the next day, I actually got rear-ended. And it was a car pileup thing. And we were waiting on the cops to arrive. And finally, this other cop showed up, but he couldn't actually work the scene. So he was standing there on the side of the road. And I was like, hey, what have you? I was like, what's up with the crime rate? Like, I had a conversation with a client who was thinking about moving here. And I was shocked that he said that Gainesville had a high crime rate. And he explained to me that, yes, it was a lot of petty crimes or smaller crimes like car break-ins and things like that. But, typically there, in that case, he was saying that it was concentrated in a specific area. And so, yes, lone one, you've got great advice to people watch, talk locally, get more insight into where that's happening or what's happening. Um, there's actually Brazelton, which is a tiny town, but great town here in the metro Atlanta area that also had a really high crime rate. And I was shocked. And, it's because also when you're looking at the overall crimes per thousand or whatever, when you have a smaller town with smaller population, 2 or 3 crimes can really, push up that number. So yes, great advice. Love it. Yeah, some parts of a county can be iffy while others, yes, 100% agree. I was showing houses here a couple of years ago and had a cop that was moving across the country from California. He was retiring and we were touring a house and we get to the back door to go out onto the deck. And so I go to turn the handle and the door just opens and he was horrified. He was like, they did not lock this. And I was like, no. And for me, it's a little bit normal sometimes to maybe forget to lock my house or lock a door. I shouldn't be putting this out there, but sometimes I don't always lock my car door, right? And so, and it's just because for a lot of places around here, things are just a little bit different where you can feel pretty safe and it's not a huge concern for people. That's not to say it doesn't ever happen, but great questions. If you have any questions about making a move or have any comments about what's happening in the real estate market, I would love to get your opinion and talk that through. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do that. It helps other people find the channel who may be thinking about making a move or live here locally. So one of the questions or things that we've been hearing a lot in the news is the possibility of a recession. And I just wanted to share a little bit more about kind of what we're looking at with data and are we headed to a recession, or what does the real estate market think about it? And as a real estate market, obviously at the end of the day, I am just the deliverer, the bearer, the person delivering this news to you from various different sources, trying to, kind of pull some data together to help you be really well informed so that you can make a good decision. So the good thing is that overall, the supply of homes for sale is improving, and this is what we're looking at nationally, and we saw that here locally in our MLS data. But if you look historically, the amount of homes for sale is still pretty low. Now, I know this might be hard to see on your screens. This white line here is inventories in 2025. And you can see that green here is 2024, blue 2023, orange 2021, 2022. So obviously there's more homes available for sale. That's fantastic. We're still not to pre-pandemic levels of homes. You see these gray lines up here are 2017, 18, and 19. So if you have been in the market for a while or of home buying age where you're paying attention to things, we still 2017, 18, 19 was a pretty healthy real estate market. A lot of people bought and sold. Interest rates were in the 5s and 6%. And, we still don't have the same market today as what we had back then. So that's important to know. Here is also relatively a piece of good news, and that is the fact that home price growth is moderating, meaning we're not seeing these huge increases of year-over-year home sales or home prices that we saw in between 2020 and 2023. Here in the Metro Atlanta area, we had home prices appreciate 19%, 20% year over year between 2020 and 2022. Oftentimes I'll have clients that come into town and we're looking for houses, and they'll, pull up their Zillow app and they'll say, hey, I saw that this house, sold for 400,000 in 2019, and now they're asking 800,000. And I'm like, yeah, that's how much home prices have appreciated. And it might feel a little bit painful to accept that information. But that's just the reality. So we're getting back to normal home price appreciation and growth. A normal market is what we're kind of seeing here, when it has January of 2025 of around 4%. That's a normal market. That is healthy, sustainable, normal growth. Also, what that means is that you're not going to be able to buy a house and expect to be able to sell it in a year or two and make money on it, because you got to factor in things like loan costs and all that kind of stuff. So you're going to need to be in your home for about a 5-year period for the most part to see, a good kind of return on that investment or to make a profit there. So that's something to think about. This is a great question. Can you provide your thoughts on affordable lots in Metro Atlanta area interested in building their dream home? I had a meeting today with a local home builder, and this was a topic of conversation that came up, is that we totally we have a lot of clients that reach out saying, we want to go build our dream home. We have envisions of being on an acre or 3 acres and, having a lot of space. It's out there. You just have to be either one, willing to pay the price, or two, willing to go further north to get to the land so that you can build that. So let me go back. Let's look at that map. This would be helpful to look at. So the areas of, I'm going to go to a county map so that we can see better. Bear with me. Okay, so where you can find affordable lots, if we're looking by county, that is mostly going to be in the North Metro Atlanta area. So you're going to have to get outside of Cobb, Cherokee, Forsyth Hall, Jackson, Barrow, and want to be outside of that. So looking up in Lumpkin, White, Habersham, Banks, um, these counties. If you go over here to the far eastern side of the Metro Atlanta area, that's too much. We don't want to go there. You can find a little bit more affordability here in Walton County, Oconee County. That's very expensive because it's essentially a little suburb town or area outside of Athens. But you have to be willing to get outside of Atlanta. Obviously, if South Georgia is your thing, you're going to have a lot of great options in South Georgia. But obviously, home prices are more here in the Metro Atlanta area because have Atlanta. So that is something to keep in mind. The challenge with why lots are so expensive is because the demand for these counties that we were talking about previously is just so high that if there is a lot available for sale that's good and buildable, a small to medium builder has come in and bought that lot, bought that land, split it up into 3 different parcels, have built spec houses on there, and they've gone, straight to the MLS system and selling that. And they're doing that anywhere and everywhere they can. Oftentimes I'll have clients come into town and they don't understand why, on the side of the road, seemingly next to a rundown farmhouse, there's $1 million modern build and it's still worth $1 million. And it's because people love the fact that you don't have an HOA. There's not a place anymore in that specific area to build that type of house, and there's demand for it. So if you're dreaming of having acreage, building that house, you're going to have to be okay with not being close to everything. Now, caveat to this is that give yourself maybe about 10 years in the place where you've built on acreage, you might end up with that unicorn down the road for someone else because the growth and development has kind of come into those areas. Totally off topic, but are there Bojangles around the Atlanta metro area? Yes, there are. And I love a spicy chicken biscuit from Bojangles. Yes, yeah, we have not a lot of them, not as, they're not as prevalent as they are in North Carolina, but they're definitely around, and you can find a Bojangles Bowberry biscuit. I'm a fan. So yeah, good questions. And so another kind of factor to think about whenever you're looking into lots to build, if you see something that seems like a great price, and if it seems too good to be true, or just seems like, hey, we can make that work with our budget in that area, you got to be very, very careful and ask yourself, why haven't one of those local small to medium builders come in and bought that to build a spec house? Usually it's either because it's in an undesirable location. Maybe in some of these areas, it could be next to chicken farms. Another thing that could be a possibility is that it might be very expensive to put in a septic system because of the soil type there, or maybe the lot is very sloped. So there's all these kind of factors that could kind of go into, yeah, you could build on it, but it's going to, just to even break ground or get to the foundation of the house, you're looking at something that's going to be $50,000 more than traditional lots would be. So some of those things to kind of ask and dig a little bit of a deeper question whenever you're looking at lots. But I'm not going to lie to you, it's hard, it's difficult, unless you're willing to be, outside in those further away places. But the benefit is that a lot of these areas have beautiful scenery and really, really great places to be if you want a little bit more of a quieter feel, at least temporarily. It'll be quieter. So great questions. If you're just joining us, let me know if you have any questions. Make sure you drop those in the chat. If you haven't already, go ahead and follow me on Instagram. I'd love to connect with you over there, sharing lots of daily insider information on what's happening here in the Metro Atlanta area, developments, businesses, all kinds of news. One of the things that we're following pretty closely that we report on quite a bit is over in Cumming, which is in Forsyth County. They have been in the works for the past year and a half, 2 years now, trying to break ground and get final approval on what's called the Gathering at South Forsyth. And the cool thing is that this is going to be like an outdoor live, work, play type situation, along with an arena that they're going to build and host concerts and things like that. But the builders and developers, they're trying to attract an NHL team. They want an NHL team in South Forsyth in the Alpharetta area. And there's been a lot of talks about it, a lot of updates. It keeps moving along. Now, the NHL hasn't expressed any interest into relocating or expanding and having a team here for the third time in the Metro Atlanta area, but they're trying. And the developer here of this venture seems to think that if you build it, they will come, and that if they get this thing far enough along, that they're going to get a commitment from the NHL to have a hockey team here. So that's something that's a little bit interesting, and I've been having fun kind of keeping up with what's going on there. But if that types of thing, if you're watching this, if you're local, if that's appealing to you and you want information on that, go ahead and give me a follow there. Would love to connect with you. And of course, if you're thinking about making a move here to the Metro Atlanta area, I'd love to be your real estate agent. My team and I help people all the time relocate here and buy. If you're local, would love to help you as well. So you can find my contact information in the linked comments or information below this video. There's a form, or obviously you can come find me on Instagram and let's connect. So thank you so much for joining us tonight and connecting with us. Make sure you're subscribed so you can get the latest video that we put out every single week about what it's like being here in the Metro Atlanta area. If there's anything I can help you with, I would love to help and connect with you. So let me know. In the meantime, I'll see you on the next video here on YouTube. See you later.